My name is Minnie. I'm 58 years old, and I never imagined I'd be sitting in an auction house watching my own daughter try to steal my home. The paddle in my hand, number 73, felt heavy with years of memories and heartbreak. Marla sat 3 rows ahead, laughing with her husband Philip, so confident she'd already won. She had no idea what I was about to do. Before I tell you how this day unfolded, drop a comment and let me know where you're watching from. Hit that like button and subscribe, because what my own daughter tried to do that afternoon taught me the hardest lesson about family I've ever learned. I've been a widow for 3 years now, Harold. My husband of 39 years passed away from pancreatic cancer when he was 61. We'd built our entire life together in Salem, Oregon, in a house we bought back in 1992. I worked as a nurse for 35 years before retiring 2 years ago, and Harold had been an electrician. We weren't wealthy, but we were comfortable. We were happy. That house on Oak Street meant everything to me. It wasn't just walls and a roof. It was where we raised our daughter Marla. It was where Harold taught her to ride her bike on the driveway, where we spent every Christmas morning watching her open presents by the fireplace. The kitchen still had the wooden counter Harold built himself when Marla turned 10. In the backyard stood the cherry blossom tree he planted for her 11th birthday. Every spring when it bloomed, I could almost hear his voice telling her to make a wish. The master bedroom upstairs was where Harold took his last breath, holding my hand. I'd sat beside him through those final weeks, watching cancer steal him piece by piece. Even now, 3 years later, I sometimes woke up reaching for him in the dark. Our home was a 2-story Craftsman with blue-gray siding and white trim. Harold had repainted it himself just 5 years before he died. The front porch had a swing he'd made from reclaimed wood. Inside, hardwood floors creaked in all the familiar places. The living room had built-in bookshelves filled with novels I'd collected over decades. Every corner held some piece of our history together. The house was worth about $450,000 now. The neighborhood had grown more desirable over the years, with young families moving in, renovating the old homes. But I didn't care about the market value. I cared about the life embedded in those walls. Marla was 34 now, married to Philip for 6 years. They had 2 children, Chloe, who was 8, and Mason, who was 5. My grandchildren. I loved them dearly, though I saw them less and less as time passed. Marla had been such a sweet child, curious and affectionate, always wanting to help me in the garden or bake cookies together. But somewhere along the way, especially after she married Philip, something changed. She became focused on appearances, on status. Philip was a real estate agent in Portland, always chasing the next big commission. He was 36, ambitious, and from what I could tell, he'd influenced Marla's priorities. After Harold died, Marla visited maybe once a month. The visits felt obligatory, rushed. She'd check her phone constantly while I tried to ask about the kids. I told myself she was just busy, that this was normal for grown children. But deep down, I felt the distance growing between us, like a crack in glass slowly spreading. Philip was always polite when I saw him, but there was a coldness there. He'd talk about property values and investment opportunities, while I just wanted to hear about my grandchildren's school activities. He and Marla lived in a nice house in Portland, about 45 minutes from Salem. They both earned good money, or so I thought. I tried not to judge. I tried to understand that Marla had her own family, now her own concerns. But sometimes late at night, in that big empty house, I wished things could go back to the way they were when she was small and needed me. About 6 months after Harold's funeral, things started to shift in ways I didn't immediately recognize. Marla began asking questions about my finances. At first, I thought it was genuine concern. She came over one evening in early spring. I'd made her favorite pot roast, hoping we could have a nice dinner together. We sat at the kitchen table, and after a few bites, she set down her fork. "Mom, how are you managing financially? Dad's pension must have stopped." I smiled, trying to reassure her. I'm fine, honey. I have my retirement from the hospital and some savings. Your father was careful about planning. She nodded, but her expression remained serious. Are you sure this house is pretty big for just one person? Have you thought about maybe downsizing? The suggestion caught me off guard. Downsizing, I love this house. Your father and I built our entire life here. But it's so much work, Mom. The yard, the maintenance. And the property taxes in this area must be getting expensive. I felt a small flutter of discomfort in my chest. I manage just fine. I enjoy taking care of the garden. It keeps me connected to your father. Marla reached across the table and patted my hand. I'm just worried about you, that's all. I wanted to believe her. I really did. 2 weeks later, she called me. Mom, Philip was saying that the real estate market is really hot right now. Houses in your neighborhood are selling for amazing prices. You could make a lot of money. I'm not interested in selling, Marla. Just think about it. You could move into a nice condo somewhere, have less to worry about, use the money to travel, enjoy your retirement. I am enjoying my retirement. Here, in my home. She sighed, that particular sigh that suggested I was being unreasonable. Okay, Mom, I just want what's best for you. But she kept bringing it up. Every phone call, every visit. The house was too big, the maintenance was too much. I should think about my future. On and on. 3 months later, both Marla and Philip came to visit. We sat in the living room and Philip launched into what felt like a rehearsed speech. Minnie, I've been looking at comparable properties in your neighborhood. Your house could easily fetch upwards of $450,000 in the current market. That's good to know, Philip, but I'm not interested in selling. He leaned forward, his hands clasped between his knees. Think about what you could do with that kind of money. You could travel, see places you and Harold always talked about. You could live comfortably without worrying about anything. I'm already living comfortably, here. Marla jumped in. Mom, you're being stubborn. What if something happens to you? What if you can't maintain the house anymore? What if you fall on those stairs? Her tone had an edge I didn't like. Then I'll deal with it when the time comes, Marla. That's not a plan, Mom. That's just being obstinate. Philip shot her a look, then turned back to me with a softer expression. We're just trying to look out for your best interests. I appreciate that, but this is my decision to make. After they left that night, I sat alone in the quiet house feeling unsettled. Something about the whole conversation felt wrong, but I couldn't quite put my finger on what. A month later, Marla arrived with a folder of paperwork. She spread it out on the kitchen counter while I made tea. Mom, I really think we should set up a power of attorney, just as a precaution. I turned from the stove. Power of attorney. What for? If you get sick or have an accident, I need to be able to make decisions for you. Financial decisions, medical decisions, it's just smart planning. I hesitated, cup of tea frozen in my hand. Marla, I'm perfectly healthy. I don't need that right now. Mom, Dad didn't plan for getting sick either. Look what happened. You were scrambling to handle everything while he was in the hospital. That struck a nerve. She was right. Those final weeks with Harold had been chaotic, trying to manage his care while dealing with insurance and bills and doctors. Maybe having someone designated would be wise. I suppose it makes sense, I said slowly. Her face brightened. Great. I have the forms right here. We just need your signature and I'll take them to get notarized. I should have read them more carefully. I should have taken them to a lawyer first. But this was my daughter, my only child. I trusted her. I signed the papers that afternoon, giving Marla general power of attorney over my affairs. 2 weeks later, I received a letter from a law office confirming the power of attorney had been registered. I called Marla to ask about it. It's all taken care of, Mom. Don't worry about anything. But I was starting to worry. Something in her voice sounded different, distant, almost satisfied. For the next 2 months, things were quiet. Too quiet. Marla didn't call as often. When I tried to reach her, she was always busy, always about to go into a meeting or deal with something urgent. Then one morning in March, a year and a half after Harold's death, I found an official-looking envelope in my mailbox. The return address said Marion County Assessor's Office. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside was a notice about a property tax lien. According to the letter, I owed $7,200 in unpaid property taxes covering 2 years. If I didn't pay within 30 days, further action would be taken. I read it 3 times, certain there must be a mistake. I always paid my property taxes. Always. On time, every year. I grabbed my checkbook and went through the register. There was no record of a property tax payment for the previous year. How was that possible? Then I remembered. Last year when the tax bill came, Marla had been visiting. She'd seen it on the counter. "Mom, let me take care of this for you. You've been through so much with Dad passing. It's the least I can do." I'd been touched by her offer. I'd given her $7,000 in cash money I'd withdrawn specifically for that purpose. She'd promised to handle it. But now, staring at this letter, I realized she'd never paid it. She'd taken my money and never paid my taxes. I grabbed the phone and called her immediately. "Hello. Marla, I just got a letter from the county. They're saying I owe 2 years of property taxes." There was a pause. When she spoke, her voice was calm, too calm. "Oh, that. Yeah, I was going to tell you about it." "Tell me about it. I gave you $7,000 last year to pay those taxes." "I know, Mom, but I needed that money for something else. I thought you'd have enough to cover it later." My breath caught in my throat. "You took $7,000 from me and didn't pay my taxes." "It's not that big of a deal, Mom. Just pay it now. Problem solved." "Not that big of a deal, Marla. They're putting a lien on my house." "So handle it. You have savings, don't you?" The casual cruelty in her tone made me feel sick. "Marla, what have you done?" "I have to go, Mom. I'm busy. We'll talk later." She hung up. I stood in my kitchen, the phone still in my hand, staring at nothing. My daughter had stolen from me. The word felt too harsh, too dramatic, but what else could I call it? The next day, I went to my bank. I needed to understand my full financial situation. I sat across from a bank officer, a kind woman named Patricia, who'd helped me set up Harold's life insurance payout account. "Mrs. Thompson, how can I help you today?" "I need to review my accounts, please, all of them." She pulled up my information on her computer. As she scrolled through, her brow furrowed. "Is something wrong?" I asked. "Well, there have been some large withdrawals from your savings account over the past few months." My stomach dropped. "How large?" $25,000 total, 3 separate withdrawals. The room seemed to tilt. "I didn't make those withdrawals." Patricia looked at me with concern. "According to our records, they were authorized by your power of attorney, a Marla Thompson." "But I never authorized specific withdrawals. I signed a general power of attorney, but I didn't give permission for this." Patricia's expression turned sympathetic. "Mrs. Thompson, with a general power of attorney. The designated person has broad authority to manage your finances. They don't need specific permission for individual transactions." $25,000, plus the $7,000 she'd taken for taxes. $32,000 my daughter had stolen from me. I felt like I couldn't breathe. "Mrs. Thompson, are you all right? Can I get you some water?" I nodded, unable to speak. When I got home that afternoon, there was another letter in my mailbox. This one had red lettering across the top. "Notice of tax foreclosure sale." I tore it open right there on the porch. Due to unpaid property taxes, my home was being scheduled for public auction on April 23rd. I had 30 days to pay the full amount owed, including penalties and fees, now totaling $9,500. If I failed to pay, the property would be sold to the highest bidder. They were going to auction my home, the home where I'd raised my daughter, where my husband had died, where every memory of my adult life lived. I tried calling Marla. It went straight to voicemail. I called Philip. He answered but said Marla was unavailable. This is important, Philip. Please have her call me. I'll let her know. She never called back. That night I sat at the kitchen table where Harold and I had shared thousands of meals, and I cried until I had no tears left. The next morning I woke up with a new determination. I wasn't going to let this happen without a fight. I made an appointment with an attorney. Her name was Janet Reeves, a woman in her early 50s who specialized in estate law. Her office was small but professional, with diplomas on the wall and family photos on her desk. I told her everything: the power of attorney, the stolen money, the unpaid taxes, the foreclosure notice. She listened carefully, taking notes. Mrs. Thompson, I'm very sorry this has happened to you. Unfortunately, with a general power of attorney, your daughter had legal authority to access your accounts. But she stole from me. Isn't that illegal? It's complicated. Proving financial abuse in cases like this can be difficult, especially when the person had legitimate legal authority. You could potentially file criminal charges or a civil suit, but that's a long process. I felt my hope deflating. What about the foreclosure? Can I stop it? If you pay the outstanding taxes plus penalties before the auction date, yes. That would stop the sale immediately. But my daughter took most of my savings. I don't have that much liquid cash available right now. Janet folded her hands on her desk. Do you have other assets, retirement accounts, investments? I have my pension, but I can't touch that without major penalties. And I have the life insurance money from Harold's death, $200,000. My financial advisor invested it in a diversified portfolio. He said I shouldn't touch it for at least 5 years to maximize growth. You could liquidate part of that, but I'd lose so much in fees and early withdrawal penalties. It's better than losing your house, Mrs. Thompson. I sat back in the chair, thinking. Then an idea formed. What if I let the auction happen? Janet looked surprised. Excuse me. If the house goes to auction, what's the starting bid? Typically it's the amount of the tax debt, in your case, $9,500. And anyone can bid. Yes, it's a public auction, including me. Understanding dawned in Janet's eyes. You want to bid on your own house? I can liquidate enough from my investments to have cash on hand. If I win the auction, I pay whatever the final bid is, and the house is mine again. Clear title. It's risky, Mrs. Thompson. Someone else could outbid you. I thought about Marla's face when she'd hung up on me, about the casual way she'd dismissed stealing $32,000 from me, about Philip's coldness. I think I know who might show up to that auction, I said quietly, and I want them to see what they've done. I want my daughter to understand that I'm not helpless. Janet studied me for a long moment. Are you absolutely certain about this? I've never been more certain of anything. We spent the next hour going over the details. I would need to register for the auction, get a bidder number, have certified funds available. Janet helped me prepare everything. When I left her office, I felt something I hadn't felt in weeks, a sense of purpose. The following week, Marla showed up at my door unannounced. I hadn't seen her since before I discovered the theft. When I opened the door, she stood there looking casual, as if nothing had happened. Hey, Mom. I didn't invite her in. What do you want, Marla? I heard about the auction. That's unfortunate. Unfortunate you caused this. She had the audacity to look offended. I didn't cause anything, Mom. You didn't pay your taxes. Because you took my money and never paid them. I borrowed it. There's a difference. You stole $25,000 from my savings account. You stole $7,000 I gave you for taxes. That's $32,000, Marla. She crossed her arms. I had power of attorney. It was legal. Legal doesn't mean right. She rolled her eyes. Look, Mom, I needed that money. Philip and I had some investments to make. I was going to pay you back eventually. When after you'd taken everything, don't be dramatic. You still have your pension, your retirement accounts. This isn't about the money, Marla. This is about trust, about family, about you betraying me." She sighed as if I was being tedious. "Mom, honestly, maybe this auction is for the best. This house is too much for you. You'll be better off in a smaller place." I stared at my daughter, this woman I'd raised, and barely recognized her. "This house is my home. It's where your father and I built our life, where we raised you. It's just a house, Mom. Bricks and wood. You're being sentimental." "Get out." "What? Get out of my house, now." She looked genuinely surprised. "Mom, you're overreacting." "Am I?" "You stole from me, Marla. You tried to take my home, and you're standing here acting like I'm the unreasonable one." She straightened her shoulders. "Fine. But you should know Philip and I have been looking for investment properties. We might put in a bid at the auction." The words hit me like a physical blow. She was actually going to try to buy my house out from under me. "You wouldn't dare." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "It's a public auction, Mom. Anyone can bid." Then she turned and walked back to her car, leaving me standing in the doorway. That night I called my friend Ruth. We'd known each other since nursing school, 40 years of friendship. She was 63 now, also a widow, and one of the few people I trusted completely. I told her everything. "Minnie, that's horrible. I can't believe Marla would do this to you. I can barely believe it myself. What are you going to do?" "I'm going to that auction and I'm going to buy my house back." "What if she outbids you?" "Then I'll bid higher. I have enough from Harold's life insurance. I can go as high as I need to." "Are you sure about this? Maybe you should just pay the taxes before the auction and avoid all this." I thought about Marla's smug expression, about the way she'd dismissed my pain, about how she'd looked at my home as nothing more than an investment opportunity. No, I want her to see this. I want her to understand that she can't take everything from me. Ruth was quiet for a moment. "Then I'm coming with you. You shouldn't face this alone." "Thank you, Ruth. I don't know what I'd do without you." In the days leading up to the auction, I prepared myself mentally and financially. I liquidated $50,000 from Harold's life insurance portfolio. My financial advisor tried to talk me out of it, warning about the penalties and lost growth potential. But I was firm. This was about more than money now. This was about dignity, about standing up for myself, about teaching my daughter that there were consequences for cruelty. The night before the auction, I could barely sleep. I kept walking through the house, touching the walls, remembering. Here was where Marla had measured her height every birthday, little pencil marks climbing up the doorframe. Here was the window where Harold would stand every morning with his coffee watching the sunrise. Here was the spot where we'd danced on our 20th anniversary, just the two of us in the living room. I couldn't lose this. I wouldn't. The morning of April 23rd arrived cold and gray. I dressed carefully in a navy blue pantsuit, wanting to look composed and dignified. Ruth picked me up at 8 in the morning. The auction was scheduled for 10. "How are you feeling, Pam?" she asked as I got into her car. "Terrified, determined. I don't know." "You're going to be fine. You're the strongest woman I know." The Marion County Courthouse was downtown, an imposing building of gray stone. We arrived early and went inside, following signs to the auction room. It was a large space with rows of chairs facing a podium, maybe 50 chairs total, and already some people were seated. I went to the registration table. A clerk handed me forms to fill out. "First time at a tax auction?" she asked kindly. "Yes." "It's straightforward. You'll get a paddle with a number. When you want to bid, just raise it. The auctioneer will acknowledge you." I filled out the forms and received my paddle. Number 73. Ruth and I took the seats near the back. I wanted to be able to see everyone. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. "Take a deep breath," Ruth whispered. "You've got this." At 9:50, with 10 minutes to go, the door opened. Marla walked in, followed by Philip. She wore an expensive-looking burgundy dress and heels. Philip was in a dark suit. They looked like they were attending a business meeting, not trying to steal someone's home. They went to the registration table. I watched Philip fill out forms and receive his paddle. Number 42. Then Marla turned and scanned the room. When her eyes found me in the back row, she froze for just a second. Then her expression changed into something like contempt. She said something to Philip, and they both looked at me. Marla smiled. It wasn't a warm smile. It was the smile of someone who thought they'd already won. They took seats in the third row. Marla glanced back at me once more, then whispered something to Philip. They both laughed. Ruth squeezed my hand. Stay calm. Remember your plan. At 10 sharp, an older man in a gray suit stepped up to the podium. He had white hair and a commanding presence. Good morning, everyone. I'm Gerald Pierce, and I'll be conducting today's Marion County Tax Foreclosure Auction. We have 5 properties on the docket this morning. I'll explain the rules once, so please listen carefully. He went through the procedures. Starting bids, bid increments, payment terms. My heart pounded so hard I could barely hear him. Let's begin with our first property. The first 3 properties went quickly. A small commercial space, a vacant lot, and a duplex. Each one attracted a few bidders. The prices climbed quickly, then someone would drop out and the property would sell. I kept my paddle in my lap, watching, waiting. Then Gerald consulted his papers and looked up. Next property, 1234 Oak Street, Salem, Oregon. 2-story craftsman home, approximately 2,000 square feet, built in 1948. Starting bid is $9,500. This was it, my home, being sold like it was nothing. Do I have $9,500? A man across the aisle raised his paddle. I recognized him vaguely, maybe a local property investor I'd seen at community meetings. $9,500 to paddle 18. Do I have $10,000? Philip raised his paddle. $10,000. $10,000 to paddle 42. Do I have 11? The other man raised his paddle. $11,000. 11 to 18. Do I have 12? Philip, $12,000. $12,000 to 42. Do I have 13? The other man hesitated, looking at Philip, then shook his head and lowered his paddle. Gerald nodded. 12,000 going once. Marla turned around in her seat. She looked directly at me, and her face broke into a huge smile. Her eyes were gleaming with triumph. She said loud enough for me and several other people to hear, "Say goodbye to your house, Mom." Philip laughed beside her. My vision tunneled. All I could see was my daughter's face, so pleased with herself, so certain she'd destroyed me. Gerald continued. 12,000 going twice. I raised paddle 73 high in the air. 15,000. My voice came out steady, clear, carrying across the room. The room went silent. Everyone turned to look at me. Marla's smile vanished. Her face went from triumphant to shocked, in an instant, color draining from her cheeks. "What?" she gasped. Gerald looked at his list, then at me. 15,000 to paddle 73. Do I have 16? Philip turned to Marla, his expression confused. I thought you said she didn't have any money. Marla's mouth opened and closed. She doesn't. She can't. This isn't possible. Gerald waited. 15,000 going once. Do I have 16? Philip looked at Marla. Should we go higher? Marla seemed unable to form words. She's not supposed to. How does she have $15,000? Gerald. 15,000 going twice. Philip raised his paddle, his hand shaking slightly. 16,000. I didn't hesitate. Didn't even pause. 20,000. Gasps rippled through the room. Marla stood up. Actually stood up, turning to face me fully. How do you have this money? Her voice was shrill, panicked. Gerald, ma'am, please sit down. She sat, but kept staring at me, her face completely drained of color now. Gerald. 20,000 to 73. Do I have 21? Philip grabbed Marla's arm. Our maximum was supposed to be 15,000. We agreed. Go to 25, Marla hissed. I need this house. Marla, that's way over budget for an investment property. I don't care. Do it. Philip raised his paddle, looking miserable. 25,000. I smiled. Actually smiled. It was the first genuine smile I'd felt in weeks. 30,000. Marla let out a sound that was almost a sob. How does she have this money? People in nearby rows were watching our exchange with fascination and discomfort. Gerald, 30,000 to 73. Do I have 35? Philip turned to Marla. We can't go higher. We don't have more than this available in liquid assets. You know that. But that's my house. It should be mine. It's not your house, Philip said quietly. It's hers. Marla's hands were shaking. She grabbed the paddle from Philip and raised it herself. 35,000. Philip tried to stop her. Marla, we can't afford this. I don't care. Tears were streaming down her face now. Gerald. 35,000 to 42. Do I have 40? I kept my eyes on Marla. I wanted her to see my face, to understand what she'd done, what she'd tried to take from me. 40,000. Marla's face crumpled. She turned in her seat to face me, fully mascara running down her cheeks. Mom, please, please stop. This isn't fair. People in the room shifted uncomfortably. Some looked away. Others watched with undisguised interest. Fair, I heard myself say. You want to talk about fair? Gerald. 40,000 to 73. Do I have 45? Marla held the paddle, her whole body trembling, but Philip grabbed her wrist. No, we don't have it. You already spent money we didn't have. This ends now. But I told everyone, I told my friends I was buying this house. I already made plans. You what? Philip stared at her. You spent money we didn't have on plans for a house we didn't own. Gerald, 40,000, going once. Marla tried to raise the paddle, but Philip held her arm down. Marla, stop. We're done. Gerald. 40,000 going twice. Marla looked at me one more time. Mom, please. I'm begging you. I'm your daughter. I met her eyes. In that moment, I felt no anger, just a deep, profound sadness. And this is my home. Gerald's gavel came down. Sold paddle number 73 for $40,000. The crack of wood on wood echoed through the room. Ruth threw her arms around me. You did it! Minnie, you did it! I couldn't speak. I just sat there, paddle still in my hand, watching Marla collapse into Philip's arms, sobbing. People around us stood gathering their things, moving on to watch the next property. The auction continued, but I barely heard it. Gerald was already calling out the address of the fifth and final property. Philip helped Marla to her feet. Her face was blotchy makeup, ruined eyes swollen. He was talking to her in a low, angry voice. You lied to me about everything. About her finances, about the power of attorney. You made me complicit in stealing from your own mother. I didn't steal. I had legal authority. That's not what power of attorney is for Marla. You know that. They started walking toward the exit. As they passed my row, Philip stopped. He looked at me with something like regret. Mrs. Thompson, I'm sorry. I didn't know the full extent of what she'd done. Marla grabbed his arm. Don't apologize to her. She has more money than she let on. She lied to us. I stood up then, facing my daughter. I never lied to you, Marla. I just didn't tell you everything. There's a difference. The same way there's a difference between borrowing and stealing, even though you seem unable to see it. Marla's face twisted. You're a hypocrite. No. I'm a mother who just had to buy back her own home from her own daughter. I'm a woman who spent 40 years building a life with the man I loved. and you tried to take it away from me for what money status. I needed that money. Philip and I are in debt. We're struggling. So you decided to steal from me instead of asking for help, instead of being honest. Marla didn't have an answer for that. Philip tugged her arm gently. Come on, we need to go. As they walked away, Marla looked back one more time. I'm sorry, she whispered, but I wasn't sure if she meant it, or if she was just sorry she'd been caught. After they left, I sat back down suddenly exhausted. Ruth stayed close, her hand on my shoulder. Are you okay? I don't know what I am. The auction ended. Gerald packed up his materials and the room emptied. I made my way to the clerk's office to complete the paperwork and payment. I'd brought a cashier's check for $50,000, prepared for any bidding scenario. Now I'd pay $40,000 and the house would be legally mine again. The clerk processed everything efficiently, treating it like just another transaction, not understanding that I'd just fought for my entire life in that room. Congratulations on your purchase, ma'am. Thank you. The deed will be processed and mailed to you within 10 business days. When we finally walked out of the courthouse into the cold April afternoon, I felt strange, hollow, victorious and devastated at the same time. Ruth drove me home. We didn't talk much during the drive. What was there to say? When we pulled up to my house that was legally mine again, I just stared at it through the windshield. Do you want me to come in? Ruth asked. No, I think I need to be alone. Call me if you need anything. Anytime, day or night. I will. Thank you for being there today. I couldn't have done it without you. She hugged me tight. You're stronger than you know, Minnie. After she drove away, I walked up to my front door, key in hand. I unlocked it and stepped inside, closing the door behind me. The house was exactly as I'd left it that morning, but somehow it felt different. Changed. Like something had broken that could never be fully repaired. I walked through the living room, running my hand along the back of the couch. I went into the kitchen and stood at the counter Harold had built. I climbed the stairs to the master bedroom and sat on the edge of the bed. And then finally alone, I let myself cry. Not sad tears, not happy tears, just tears of release, of exhaustion, of grief for what I'd lost even in winning. The first week after the auction, my phone rang constantly. Always Marla's number. I never answered. She left voicemails. 10 of them by the end of that first week. Mom, please pick up. I need to talk to you. Mom, I know you're angry, but we need to discuss this. Mom, please, I'm your daughter. You can't just shut me out. Mom, I'm sorry. Okay, I'm sorry. Please call me back. Mom, this is ridiculous. Answer your phone. Mom, please. I made mistakes, but I'm still your daughter. We're still family. I listened to each one, but I didn't call back. I wasn't ready. Maybe I'd never be ready. Ruth visited every few days, bringing groceries and company. She never pushed me to talk about Marla, just let me process things in my own time. Janet, my attorney, called to confirm the deed had been processed and was being mailed. She also informed me that she'd prepared paperwork to revoke the power of attorney. I'm not taking any chances, I told her. Smart decision, Mrs. Thompson. 10 days after the auction, Marla showed up at my door. It was early evening. I'd just finished dinner when I heard the knock. Through the peephole, I saw her standing there. She looked terrible. No makeup, hair pulled back messily, wearing sweatpants and an oversized jacket. So different from the polished woman at the auction. I debated not opening the door, but she was still my daughter. Some part of me still needed to hear what she had to say. I opened the door but didn't invite her in. Mom, her voice cracked. Please, can we talk? What is there to say, Marla? I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. Tears were already streaming down her face. I know I hurt you, I know what I did was wrong. Do you really understand? Yes. I've been thinking about it nonstop. I haven't been able to sleep. Philip is barely speaking to me. Why did you do it? She wrapped her arms around herself. Philip and we're in trouble financially. We bought the house in Portland at the peak of the market. His real estate commissions dropped during the recession. We have credit card debt loans. I thought if I could access your money, your house, I could fix everything. So you decided to destroy me to save yourself. I didn't think of it like that. I thought you'd be fine. I thought you didn't need that much money. I thought you'd be happier in a smaller place. You thought wrong about everything, Marla. I know, I see that now. Mom, I was desperate. I made terrible choices, but I never wanted to hurt you. But you did hurt me. You stole from me. You betrayed my trust. You tried to take the home where I raised you, where your father died. How could you think that wouldn't hurt? She sobbed harder. I don't know. I wasn't thinking clearly. I was panicking about money, about keeping up appearances. Philip kept talking about investments and opportunities. I got caught up in it all. That's not an excuse. I know it's not. I'm not making excuses. I'm just trying to explain. I was wrong. Completely, horribly wrong. We stood there in the doorway, a gulf between us that felt impossible to cross. Can you forgive me? She whispered. I felt tears in my own eyes. I don't know. Right now, I don't know if I can. Please don't shut me out of your life. I'll do anything. I'll pay back every cent. I'll spend years making this right. Just please don't give up on me. Marla, you tried to take my home, the last place I have of your father. You knew what this house meant to me, and you tried to take it anyway. I know, I'm a terrible person. I'm a terrible daughter. You're not terrible, you're just lost. And I can't help you find your way back. Not right now. Maybe not ever. Her face crumpled. Mom, please. I need you to leave now. Mom. Go, Marla. Please just go. She stood there for another moment, then turned and walked slowly back to her car. I watched her drive away, then closed the door and leaned against it, my own tears falling. Over the next few months, I focused on rebuilding my life. I had Janet help me revoke the power of attorney officially. I changed my will, removing Marla as the primary beneficiary, and instead splitting everything between Chloe and Mason in a trust they'd receive when they turned 25, with a portion going to charities Harold and I had always supported. I joined a support group for people who'd experienced financial abuse from family members. Sitting in a circle with 8 other people, hearing their stories, I realized I wasn't alone. This happened more often than anyone wanted to admit. Adult children taking advantage of aging parents, spouses stealing from each other, siblings fighting over estates. We all carried the same pain, the same confusion. How could family do this to family? But we also shared strength. We'd all survived. We'd all fought back in our own ways. I started volunteering at the senior center, helping other older adults understand their financial rights and how to protect themselves. I didn't want anyone else to go through what I'd experienced. Ruth remained my anchor. We took walks together, went to movies, had dinner at our favorite restaurants. She never judged me for not reconciling with Marla. She just supported whatever I needed. You have to do what's right for you, she told me one afternoon over coffee. No one else can tell you how to feel or when to forgive. Philip reached out once about 3 months after the auction. He sent me a letter handwritten. Dear Mrs. Thompson, I want you to know that I had no idea about the full extent of what Marla had done until that day at the auction. I thought the power of attorney was just a precaution that the financial transactions were legitimate. I was wrong to not ask more questions. I was wrong to encourage her to bid on your house. Marla and I are in counseling now, trying to work through our problems. I don't know if our marriage will survive this, but I wanted you to know that I'm sorry for my part in hurting you. You deserved better from both of us. Respectfully, Philip. I appreciated his apology even if it didn't change anything. Marla tried a few more times to reach me. A birthday card in June, a letter in August. Each time she apologized, begged for another chance, promised she was changing. I read them all. I just didn't respond. Then in September, 6 months after the auction, she sent one final letter. This one was different. Dear Mom, I've been in therapy for 4 months now. I'm working on understanding why I made the choices I did. My therapist helped me see that I'd gotten so caught up in material success that I'd lost sight of what really mattered. I know I hurt you in ways that might be unforgivable. I don't expect you to welcome me back into your life. I just want you to know that I'm trying to become a better person. Not for you or Philip or anyone else. For myself. And for Chloe and Mason. They ask about you all the time. They miss their grandmother. I miss my mom. But I understand if you need to keep your distance. If this is the last letter you read from me, I want you to know that despite everything I did, you were always a wonderful mother. I'm the one who failed, not you. I love you. Marla. I sat with that letter for a long time. Then I wrote back. Just a few lines. Marla, I appreciate your apology and I'm glad you're getting help. I hope you do become a better person, but I'm not ready to rebuild what we had. Maybe someday, but not now. I need more time. I wish you well in your healing. Mom. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't reconciliation. But it was honest. And honesty was all I had to offer. A year after the auction, I was sitting on my front porch on a warm spring afternoon. The cherry blossom tree Harold had planted was in full bloom, petals drifting down like snow. I'd made it through. The house was still mine. I'd survived my daughter's betrayal. I was healing slowly but surely. Ruth pulled up in her car and waved. We were going to see a play in Portland that evening. As I stood to go meet her, I looked back at my house. Harold's house. My house. Our house. The fight to keep it had cost me my relationship with my daughter, at least for now. Maybe forever. But I'd stood up for myself. I'd refused to be a victim. And that meant something. I'd learned hard lessons over this past year. I'd learned that love doesn't mean letting people hurt you. That forgiveness doesn't require forgetting. That sometimes the strongest thing you can do is say no, even to family. Especially to family. I'd learned that home isn't just about walls and memories. It's about the ground you choose to stand on when everything else is trying to knock you down. I'd learned that being alone isn't the same as being abandoned, that choosing yourself isn't selfish, that protecting your peace sometimes means closing doors you once thought would stay open forever. And I'd learned that I was stronger than I'd ever known, stronger than my grief over Harold, stronger than my love for Marla, strong enough to fight for what was mine. The house stood behind me, solid and real. Every room held ghosts of the life Harold and I built together. The kitchen where we cooked Sunday dinners, the living room where we watched Marla grow up, the bedroom where he took his last breath. Marla had tried to take all of that from me. Maybe she'd convinced herself it was for good reasons, that she needed it more than I did, that I'd be better off without it. But those were her justifications, not her rights. I didn't hate her. Honestly, I pitied her. She'd lost sight of something essential, something that couldn't be bought or sold at any auction. She'd confused wealth with worth possession, with power. And in trying to take what wasn't hers, she'd lost what was. Her mother's trust, her own integrity, her peace of mind. Would we reconcile someday? I didn't know. There was a part of me that hoped so, that missed my daughter and ached for my grandchildren. But there was another part stronger now that understood some bridges couldn't be rebuilt. Some betrayals cut too deep. And that was okay. I was learning to be okay with it. Ruth honked, gently pulling me from my thoughts. I waved, grabbed my purse, and walked toward her car. As we drove away, I looked back one more time at the house on Oak Street. My house. Hard-won and dearly kept. I thought about that day at the auction, about raising my paddle and seeing the shock on Marla's face. About her crying out, demanding to know how I had money she didn't know about. About the moment she realized she hadn't broken me after all. People say blood is thicker than water. They say family is forever. They say you should always forgive. But I learned something different that day at the Marion County Courthouse, sitting in that room full of strangers fighting for my home against my own daughter. I learned that sometimes the deepest cuts come from the people who share your blood, and sometimes the only way to heal is to close the door on the ones who refuse to see your worth. Not out of anger, not out of revenge, but out of love. Love for yourself. Love for the life you built with your own hands, your own heart, your own years of work and sacrifice. Love for the memories that no one can take from you, no matter how hard they try. Love for the future you still have, even when the past has been stolen. I settled back in Ruth's car, watching the familiar streets of Salem pass by. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of gold and rose. Tomorrow, the cherry blossoms would fall a little more. Tomorrow, I'd wake up in my house, make coffee in Harold's kitchen, sit on the porch swing he built with his own hands. Tomorrow, I'd continue living the life I'd fought so hard to keep, and that in the end was enough. Have you ever had to stand up to someone you loved, even when it hurt? Have you ever fought for something everyone else thought you should let go? Drop a comment below and share your story. I'd love to hear from you, and if this story resonated with you, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this with someone who might need to hear it. Sometimes we all need reminders that it's okay to fight for ourselves, that it's okay to set boundaries, even with family. Thank you for listening to my story today. I hope wherever you are, whatever you're facing, you find the strength to stand your ground when it matters most. Take care of yourselves. And remember, your worth is never up for debate.